everyone, it's Ross here. So today I am going to be assembling and painting some Razorgors. So these guys are obviously in a nice shiny bag. So I'll take them out of the bag. And the next thing you'll notice is these are resin. These aren't Games Workshop's Razorgors. The Razorgors, I find, have an unusual eye, let's say, from Games Workshop, and I have purchased 8 of these guys at a fraction of the price of the Games Workshops. I think I can probably get about 2, maybe 2.5 Razorgors from Games Workshop, where I've got 8 of these guys. It was, obviously money was a bit of a factor. You know, if you want to get a unit of 8, or if you want to get 2 units of 4, that's quite pricey from Games Workshop. But it's the eyes, mainly the eyes. They just look too comedic, too characterized. So Mercer Miniatures have these. So they're just incredibly large pigs, basically. They're not too chaosified. You'll find that they've got spines and spikes over them, like so. And they have a regular pig-like tail. And there's hardly any mold lines, so obviously you've got the casting bits there. Once you snip those off, there's a tiny bit of cleaning up. The only thing I did find on assembly is you might find yourself needing a little bit of green stuff where the top of the head, or in some of the cases you stick the lower part of the head on, and there's a slight gap. So in a Blue Peter fashion, here's one I prepared earlier. Assembled, a little bit of green stuff, spray can black, and a zenithal highlight from above, or you could even use a dry brush if you like from above. Give it a bit more of a pop when we put our contrast paints on. So I'm going to paint these guys up in a very similar style to my other beastmen that I've been painting and updating you guys with my videos. So I'm going to start with Gore Gruntifer, mainly in the body. Now it's going to look like a fairly boring model in my opinion. So you want to pick a few little colours that are a bit brighter than just the brown to make it pop a little bit more. So if you don't think these guys are chaosy enough, I will put my Shaman next to them and look at the size difference. So Shaman is probably slightly bigger than the average man in Warhammer. Thank you, Shaman. And they are incredibly large pigs. It's kind of like Pumbaa on steroids. They're fairly chaotic. Like I said, the tusks are slightly bigger than you would imagine. Obviously, they have spines on. But if you wanted to swap the tail out, so easy to do, such an easy conversion, because they come obviously without the tails, and you have to stick them on yourself. And you can stick a tentacle or something on to make it look possibly a little bit more chaosy. But I'm going to paint the first 4 up in a regular paint scheme and see how they look. If I feel like they need maybe some boils, maybe some tentacles occasionally, just to mix things up, because they are creatures of chaos, I will do. But yeah, here goes. So starting off with the old Gore Gruntifer. So your Gore Gruntifer, obviously giving it a bit of a shake anyway. And I'm using a size 3 Winsor & Newton brush for this. I'm just going to really push in all the little nooks and crannies. And hopefully, if you've done a fairly nice job with your zenithal, when this dries, it will have just a little bit more of a contrast. I know it's a contrast paint anyway, but let's see what you think when it dries. Really push it into all those recesses of fur. Doesn't matter if you get the spikes a little bit, that's okay. And I'll come back when that's done. Still fairly fast, even though the module is quite large. So you should have something like this. So you got lighter patches than others, like the tail's lighter than the underbelly, and the upper part of the legs lighter. There are some unfortunate details, but very realistic there. You can by all means remove those if you want to. They're not too obvious. Like I said, they are fairly realistic. So what do we do next colour wise? Well, if you've got an airbrush handy, Vallejo, Elf Skin Tone, Vallejo, Squid Mucky Pink. Yep, I got some paint on that. Just a little bit of pink, I would say probably a quarter pink to the elf tone. And we're going to apply this to the face, the fleshy bit of the tail, and the ears. So I'm just going to mix that in my airbrush in a minute. So like I said, fleshy bit of the tail. Reason ideally it's better to do flesh tones with airbrush, less brush strokes, faster. You can blend it in with the skin and the fur a little bit better. The Ghoul Grunter fur you can obviously touch back in later on. Now apply with a brush. Not a problem. I'll do the bits as well. Just so, I'm not going to make it too noticeable. Put the face, blend it into the fur. Remember, with airbrushing, always aim for the difficult to reach bits first. So a little bit on the ears. With the airbrush, it's really ideal because you can blend the fleshy bits into this fur, and if you don't like it so much, you can always blend it back in with your brush that you used. See if I can get into the mouth a bit better. That's more like it, isn't it? Brush that you used with your Ghoul Grunter fur in the beginning. So already you can see it's starting to look a little bit more like a big piggy. Once your fleshy tone's drying off, you can always just use the elven flesh by itself. The utmost layer on the tail and the face, just a little bit brighter, so it pops a little bit more, as you can see there. A little bit less pinky on top of the nose, more pinky inside the face. It's looking okay so far. Next we'll hit the spines and the hooves for the same colour. So I'm going to be using the contrast Basilicanum Grey. This blends very well into the rest of my army because I believe that goats don't have black hooves or horns, but are very, very dark grey. So there you go. Give it a damn good shake. Even though it's a contrast, it's nice to have it nice and smooth. I do find a little bit of contrasts, if you're not careful, sometimes they get a little bit shiny if you don't shake them. So putting it on the hooves and the spiny bits. Being a bit more careful now, but still using a size 3 brush. There's not much massive amounts of detail on these models. I'll come back when I finish that. Okay, so far this little piggy is looking like that. I like a little bit of a wilder pink, so I'm going to go for some Emperor's Children. Getting a smaller brush now. So this is a Citadel medium layer brush, and I'm going to try to get his tongue, the gums, and the roof of the mouth. So the reason we do this first is if we miss where we're going, have a little bit of paint where we don't want it. That's generally going on the teeth and away, and the teeth are the next stage. So it looks a tiny bit wild now, but it will calm down a bit once we put a wash on it. So on the roof of the mouth as well. And if you want, you can always put a little bit of pink in the nasal area as well, up the nose. Next, get your favourite white. There's so many different whites out there. I do find the Games Workshop Citadel white, or whites, there's different variants of white, are very pigmenty and dry out quite fast. So I'm not sure what whites you use. I've used different whites over the years and experimented with each one. We'll put a nice base colour down for the tusks, and it's the same way I do my bone recipe and my skulls for my beastmen. It's a quick scheme, it's a very dirty scheme, makes those bones and tusks look really grubby, and that's what you want. You're not going to have a nice bleached bone here, not all these guys truffling through corpses, and possibly worse. So doing the tusks, and don't forget the little teethies as well. Isn't this guy cute? Okay, so a little bit of Agrax Earthshade. Fantastic stuff. Give it a good old shake. And we're going to apply this to the teeth and the tusks. Quite thick. I want to keep the thickest part of it at the base of the tusk. And the teeth as well. Underneath the tongue to give some dirty shadow. A little bit in the roof of the mouth. And while the Agrax is drying, get yourself a nice dry brush with a little bit of Cadian flesh tone on. Just bring up highest and most points of the fur. So on the rump, get it on the booty, top of the arms, top of the head, things like that. It just adds a little bit more of a dimension to the fur, so it doesn't look quite so uniform. Contrast is good, but it's not the end result, so a little bit of a dry brush really make it pop just a little bit more. And same with the hooves and the spines. But for that we're going to use a little bit of Celestria Grey. So it doesn't need much, just a little bit of the topmost edges and the very bottom of the hooves themselves. So wipe off a lot of the excess. This is more of a suggestion, the old less is more kind of thing. So hopefully it picks up a little bit of detail, just like that. If you want to make the spines appear a bit more sharp, just put a little bit of the Celestria grey on neat, just on the topmost bit of the spikes, just to make them look a little bit more spiky, a bit brighter, a bit crisper, just near the apex of each of the spikes. Optional, but I think you would agree it makes a bit of a difference. Just like that. So it's really starting to come alive. So when the agrax is dry and the bony tusks look like that, I like to make the tips a little bit cleaner to give it a bit more transition between the top and the bottom of the tusk. Use a little bit of Screaming Skull. So it's quite a white bony colour. Just try to blend some of it in. It's not going to go all the way up the tusk. And when this is dry, maybe put a little bit of white on the very, very tip, just to make it pop a bit more. So you want them to be grubby, yet still somewhat eye-catching. So I'll tidy that up just a little bit more, and then I'll add a little bit of white afterwards. And that's basically it. All you got to do next is base it. So once again, prepared one base I've already done before. I'd like to do a nice wooded base, but of course feel free to do anything you want for your old world. You could have these guys rampaging through a city or something. But no, for me, the occasional rock, tuft, may find a skull, like on that side, and a good old-fashioned fern. So these Razorgors, I've got 8 of them. I reckon I could do them in a whole day. Well done contrast. So these guys are mainly one colour with a few added little extras. Airbrushing does speed up the process on skin and making it smoother, but isn't necessary. If you don't have an airbrush, that's totally fine. You can bang these guys out in no time at all. So a very fast and effective way of painting Razorgors. Thank you for watching, guys. Catch you in the next video.